The stable functioning of a society depends upon the relatively long-term stability of the goals of its citizens. All right, so we're saying that the stable functioning of a society, so like to have like this functioning of society, it depends upon the relatively long-term stability of the goals of the actual citizens. All right, this is clear, okay, from the fact that unless the majority of individuals have a predictable and enduring set of aspirations, it will be impossible for a legislator to craft laws that will augment the satisfaction of the citizenry. I'm like, okay, that's confusing, but this is clear. I feel like we're going into support now for what we just said. Like we're saying this up here is clear because of this. All right. And it should be obvious that the society is stable only if its laws tend to increase the happiness of its citizens. All right. So our conclusion is going to be the first sentence, right?
Yeah.
So the stable functioning of society depends upon the relatively long-term stability of the goals of its citizens. And then this question asks us about the claim that a society is stable only if its laws tend to increase the happiness of its citizens plays which of the following roles. So I want to find that up above. Only if.
It's where is this? Right here.
So what is the role of that sentence to our conclusion? So we're saying I have to read this once more time, to be honest. So the stable functioning society depends upon the relatively long-term stability of the goals of its citizens because unless the majority of individuals have a predictable and enduring set of aspirations, so unless people have like predictable goals, it will be impossible.
Why did you say because instead of like?
Oh, I did because whenever it said this is clear from the fact, I just changed that to the word because. Because like we're saying like this is clear from the fact, like that's like saying like because or since. Do you see that? Do you see why that is? And that's just easier for me to understand. So because
and it helps you like distinguish like what's the conclusion and what.
Yeah, because we're saying this is clear from the fact. Like this would be like we should get ice cream. This is clear from the fact that it's hot outside. Like instead of saying that, I can just say it's hot outside, or we should get ice cream because it's hot outside. Like that's easier to say than we should get ice cream. This is clear from the fact because it's hot outside.
Yeah.
Because unless the majority of individuals have a predictable and enduring set of goals, so unless people have predictable goals, it will be impossible for a legislator to create laws that will satisfy the citizenry. And it should be obvious that a society is stable only if its laws tend to increase the happiness of its citizens. So we're saying that like, okay, so a society is stable only if laws tend to increase happiness.
So it's definitely not A because we know what our conclusion is. It's the first sentence.
Right. But what is that rule? So we're saying like it should be obvious that a society is stable only if it has this thing. So it's giving us kind of like a necessary condition, like something that's required for a society to be
the stable functioning society, like it's necessary for a stable functioning of a society.
Yeah, it's like telling us what it depends upon.
Okay.
So honestly, it's kind of just like very basically just kind of like some support. But if we're going to go through these, we know it's not it is not the conclusion of the argument. B, helps support the conclusion. I like that one so far.
I think it would have to be B if it's just support.
Just support, yes. C, it is a claim that must be refuted if the conclusion is to be established. No, like this.
What do they mean by that? Like it must be refuted if
like it can't be true. Like they're saying like, this can't be true if we are to have our conclusion. Like no, that's not true. Like this actually supports our conclusion.
Okay.
It is a consequence of the argument. No, like this isn't a consequence. And it is used to illustrate the general principle that the argument presupposes. So do we use this to show the general principle that the argument assumes?
I wasn't even sure if there was a principle.
Well, one, no, there's not. There's not a general principle.
Okay, good. Then I'm not tripping out.
We don't use it to illustrate the general principle. Like we use this as a fact to support our main conclusion.
Yeah.
And so so that's why our answer is going to be B. But I think a lot of people get confused on some of the wording of some of these answer choices.